So in this video, we're going to be talking about this exam for the Microsoft Azure test and go through some tips and some things you might not know about how this exam works. So over the years, Microsoft has grown away from having a majority of multiple choice questions, maybe with some other testing vendors, or if you've taken a Microsoft exam more than 10 years ago, you might be expecting all or a lot of multiple choice questions. But over the years, Microsoft has been adding in other question types that are not multiple choice. And it's really smart to go and look at Microsoft's YouTube channel and look at some of these example question types. There are generally case studies. So not every question is going to be inside a case study, but you'll find that some of the questions they'll set up a fictional business and it'll have interviews with executives. It'll have backgrounds on the problems. It'll have their existing environment, their business requirements, and then you finally get into asking some questions. Now, some of them might be multiple choice, but some of them will likely not be multiple choice. I've seen questions where there are multiple boxes on the left, and you have to only move the boxes to the right that are relevant for the answer. It doesn't matter what order they are as long as they're the right answer. It's a multi-select, essentially. Then there's also that same type of question, but the order has to be in the right order. So step 1 is this, step 2 is that, step 3 is that. Has to be in the right order as well as the right boxes. You've got a simulated Azure portal interface where you have to drag words into the right settings boxes. There's code where you have to drag those words into the right spots within code. And many other similar things that you'll find. So those are definitely worth checking out to understand that these questions are not going to be what you expect. Now, Microsoft says that the passing grade is 700, but it's important to note that 700 does not mean 70%. So you cannot do math. You cannot, add up that there were 40 questions and you got 30 of them correct. Therefore, you got 75%. Therefore, your score must be 750. There's not that direct relationship between the number of questions you got right and your score and whether you passed or not. Microsoft calls this a cut score. So all of the exams that they give across all of the subjects are designed such that if you got 700 or greater, then you would consider to have passed. Now, sometimes the exams are harder and sometimes the exams are easier. And so you're going to find the scoring differently based on that. So that's why they can't even tell you the number of questions that there are. Part of it's because of the security of the exam, but part of it is because if I take the exam today and you take the exam next month, then we may see different numbers of questions, and it's totally normal. So they have a large set of questions to pull from. One thing I can say is you and I will not see the same questions because the set is so large that if you take the same test twice, you're not likely to see the same questions twice. Because of the difficulty level, you might see less questions that are more difficult, and I'll see more questions that are less difficult, and that'll still all come down to needing to get 700 to pass. The number of hours is variable too, based on the number of questions. Now, when we do see these case studies, sometimes you have to complete the case study, and then when you click next, you can't go back to that case study. So the case study and the several questions that follow are a complete set. And so you'll find what we may be used to is setting things up to review later and expecting at the end of the exam period, you can go back and review everything across the entire exam. And there might be points in time where you can't do that. So the next thing you want to know is that there are no such things as partial credits. And if you have a single question, let's say you have to put all the boxes there and then you have to put them in the right order. If you put all the right boxes but you don't have them in the right order, you will score 0 on that question. Okay, so they're not going to give you a partial credit because you did part of the answer. Or if there's 3 correct answers and you got 2 of them, that doesn't mean you get 2/3 marked correct. So each question is only worth 1 point. The exam is timed, of course, so you have to keep an eye on the clock, pace yourself. And you probably should never leave a question unanswered. So if you do find yourself at the end of a review period and you're like, I just don't know the answer to this, there's no harm in guessing. Okay, so you will just absolutely answer every question. And that's one thing you should, because of the complexity of the testing interface, make sure you have answered every question. And I think Microsoft does a good job of highlighting in yellow the ones that you've left blank, but still go back and make sure you have answered every question. But there's no points deducted for getting any of them wrong. So those are my tips for taking this test. Be sure and review this and understand things about passing grade and why we can't be clear on the number of questions and length of time. You won't be able to find that answer on the Microsoft site, and it's a very difficult thing to find it anywhere on the web, really. So that's the explanation for why.